President Biden has nominated Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to fill the vacancy on the U.S. Supreme Court.
Well, race and gender are big when it comes to representation and inclusion on the court. So when it comes to Ketanji Brown Jackson, and we look at the intersection of race and gender, we actually see how rare it is. Of course, this is the first for the Supreme Court, and we know that having a more diverse bench, having more diverse representation, not only is good for optics in terms of people's perceptions, but it also matters in the level of empathy. One of the big things that Justice Breyer noted about Ketanji Brown Jackson is her ability to empathize and see things from different perspectives. Her being a defense attorney is such a big deal because it gives her a different positionality in what's going on. And the affirmative action case that might happen later this fall is also very interesting because oftentimes what happens when it's a woman or a black person, especially when it's a black woman, people always try to claim affirmative action when it comes to these particular hires. Look, all people have to do is look at her record. It could be argued that her record is just as good, if not better, than some of the recent people who have been nominated, and that she probably should have been farther along than she actually was, given all of the things that she's done.
Unlike the past 3 Supreme Court fights, we're not expecting this Supreme Court confirmation to be as contentious. Right now, the main message from Senate Republicans appears mainly to be that they're going to treat Jackson with respect, but that they're going to have a fair and thorough confirmation hearing. And we spoke to Senator Chuck Grassley, the top Republican on the Judiciary Committee. He indicated that Republicans are going to not go into the gutter like the Democrats did, which is an unsubtle reference to the Justice Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation hearings. It's also worth noting that there's not a lot Senate Republicans can do to stop this nomination. Senate Democrats appear to have the votes to confirm her at the moment. Both Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema both voted to support Jackson's DC Circuit nomination last year, and they've given no indication that they're potentially not going to vote for her. So Democrats can confirm Jackson with just 50 votes, and so if they don't have any Republican support, they're going to be fine regardless. But that's not stopping the White House and Judiciary Democrats from wanting this to be a bipartisan vote.
I think Ketanji Brown Jackson being on the court would definitely have a big influence on what is happening behind the scenes, the discussions that are happening with the justices themselves. And I think this is one of the things that conservatives, particularly people on the far right, are worried about.
At the moment, we're expecting most Senate Republicans to vote against Jackson, given that that was the case last year with her DC Circuit Court confirmation, but it's worth looking at the Republicans who did vote to confirm her. Now, Senator Graham had previously pushed for Judge Michelle Childs to have this position and to replace Breyer, and he has since described Jackson as the pick of the radical left. And so we're not expecting him at the moment to support Jackson's nomination. Regardless, Democrats at the moment are not expecting any defections within their caucus, and there's an expectation that she will at least pick up some level of bipartisan support.
So it's important to keep in mind that while any Supreme Court nomination is historic, and you are talking about someone who could be on the court for a couple generations, perhaps 30 years or more. At the moment, we're talking about a 6-3 court. This is not a court where anyone that President Joe Biden nominates is likely to make a huge impact because it's not that closely divided. I don't think that you would say that Jackson is wildly different in ideological outlook than Stephen Breyer. She did clerk for him. Whether she would be as moderate as he is, I think, is an open question. Some people would say probably not. Certainly there are a bunch of advocates for her who are hoping that she'll be kind of a stalwart liberal voice on the court.
So it'll be interesting, not only thinking about how Ketanji Brown Jackson votes, but the way that some of the more moderate justices who tend to lean more conservative, who were nominated by Republican presidents, the way that they're going to be swayed, even though we know that the bench is slanted to the right. When it comes to certain issues, I think people have been surprised at some of the outcomes, and Ketanji Brown Jackson could be what some individuals need on the other side to actually get some things passed.
In terms of Judge Jackson's record on the district court and in the circuit court, her record in the circuit court is pretty short. I think she's only had 2 or 3 written opinions that she's delivered in the less than a year that she's been on the DC circuit. She did sort of tee off in a couple of cases involving issues of executive privilege under the Trump administration and the Trump White House. She had said in one of her opinions, the president is not a king. I do think that's part of why liberal advocates are so confident that she would be sort of an ally of theirs on the Supreme Court. I don't think there are a lot of opinions you can point to that are very ideologically pointed. The signals that supporters of Jackson are putting out, I think, are derived from other aspects of her record, not strictly the paper that you can see from the output of her work in court, but from her resume, her background, and her friendships. And I should say that's not unusual for nominees from either a Republican or a Democratic president. There's a lot of this behind the scenes signaling. And in fact, it's become more common in recent decades as Supreme Court nominations have become more contentious. You will see nominees that don't have a particularly controversial record, yet one side or the other is completely convinced that they will be an ideological stalwart. To some extent, that's exactly who many White Houses are looking for in a Supreme Court nominee.